composed of millions of little beings. We're not individuals, and so our thoughts and our feelings are confused by this. And so the idea is to extract ourselves from these clusters of little beings. Body thetans, yes.
Yeah, which came from an intergalactic war.
Yes, 75 million years ago, in the centre of the galaxy.
You're channeling L. Ron Hubbard now, aren't you?
Very nearly, yeah.
So, why, just supposing, let's take a leap of imagination, just supposing this is nonsense, this thetan business, just supposing it's not true for 1 second. Why do sane, rational, intelligent human beings buy it, literally, and buy into it?
Well, it's a secret. I've been a member for 7 years before this was put to me. So, you know, I'd gone along that road for a long way. And in fact, the day that I opened the pack to these materials, I said, this is like Colin Wilson's novel, The Mind Parasites. It didn't make sense to me. But I said, I've been on this road for 7 years. I'll check it. I'll see. And I still never did feel convinced. And 2 years later, I left.
And how long is it? Are you still getting over it?
No. It's nearly 30 years ago since I left. But I think the problem with people who leave is they often consider the emotional experiences they had rather than questioning the truth of the teachings. Yeah. Scientology claims to be scientific. So if you look at its tenets and discuss them openly, you find it's not scientific.
And L. Ron Hubbard, he said he preached against drugs. That's no bad.
Yes, he himself admitted to having been a barbiturate addict in a lecture. And he tried to cash prescriptions in East Grinstead in the 60s so that he could give barbiturates to plants, he said.
But this is interesting, isn't it? You don't know, Christina, you don't know what it's about until you're, well, everyone knows now the secret's out. Not here, but previously.
Read my book.
That's one of the best plugs I've ever heard. But you don't know the secret until you're well into it, Christina.
Yes, that's true. And I think
you don't really know what the beliefs are.
But that is a very good magnet for people who are feeling vulnerable and confused. The mystery, the unfolding mystery.
Seduced.
Yes.
Yes.
And yet when viewing it from a distance, Judge Leahy in the mid-80s described it as corrupt, sinister and dangerous. Those are strong words to use, and so again we have to look at the methodology within a group. Why is it that people take on board a particular worldview? If it's through free choice, fine. If it's not, that's a serious
problem. George, we haven't heard from George yet. I'm over the side now, so we've got to... I'll come along. George.
No, I think throughout this programme we've tended to polarise the discussion, and we've done it right from the start, that what's the difference between a religion and a cult, as if you've got religions there and cults there.
That was the idea that we had in mind. I agree with this gentleman.
Cults brainwash you, it's psychological coercion, it's a charismatic leader.
Well, Francesca was saying from right at the top, there is very little distinction if you look at it. It's just a matter of scale.
But that's what make it so.
Not everyone uses it.
But if you looked at the list that you put up at the beginning of the programme, if you take something like Opus Dei, now it's actually part of the Roman Catholic Church. It's been approved by the Pope. It's heavily criticised
around the world,
which is precisely my point. Sorry, can you let me finish, Ian, please? But it's part of the Roman Catholic Church. Okay, it's controversial, but it's precisely my point. Which category do you put it in? Is it part of religion, or is it something that's different? And I think we've tended to say, well, religion, mainstream religion has got sensible beliefs. Cults have got these kind of funny beliefs.
We haven't said that. Some people have said that. Some people haven't said that. So I think you're being a little bit selective in your hearing.
I have to support this gentleman here because in general, the conversation has been the split between religion and cults. And the conversation, what's been said, is a generalization rather than actually address specific areas. And quite frankly, I think this obscures what's really going on. That is to say, if we're trying to find meaning. But if we're just trying to have a little circus here, then we're having it.
What's really interesting about the debate is when I employed, and I know nothing about this gentleman's sexual habits, by the way, but when I employed exactly the same technique, of casting aspersions without any evidence whatsoever, I was called ridiculous. And yet, when this is happening on the front row here, it's thought of as, oh yes, these movements are dangerous. But the fact is, the techniques of criticism are from that side, and they are all generalised. There are one or two absolutely real. There are some real very
important... Let's explore a technique in a second. One of the techniques, a cultish practice. We're not talking about groups per se being cults. We're talking about cultish practices within groups, whether they be sects, whether they be parts of religions, or whatever. You've had your hand up for so long.
You were talking about your definition, first of all, of what counts as a cult. a lot of those words that you used are actually subjective, that this is, this is
Words are all
manipulative.
Words
One
are all
person's
subjective.
manipulative is another person's selling technique,
Manipulation means
etc.,
having a hidden agenda.
And you
It
talk
means
about
that, literally,
separation,
hidden agenda.
and I'm sure that lots of people have experienced when they belong to established religions and they decide to marry somebody that is not of their faith, and their families get very upset and they don't speak to them, and people won't have green carpets because they're Protestant.
So what's the difference? This is our original contention.
They use separation. All groups, political parties, religions, they all use we know what's best, those people are doing it wrong.
Barbara, tell us about Tom, your son.
Right. My son is involved with an organisation that's based on the internet. It's not a religion. It's run by an atheist who lives in Canada, who is an entrepreneur. He has set up a structure which earns him a living from voluntary donations and subscriptions to the podcasts, the books that he produces.
It's around philosophy, isn't it?
That's
Politics,
right.
philosophy, so-called free
It's
thinking.
apparently the biggest philosophy show on the internet. My son was studying philosophy and critical thinking when he was at school. He was about 16 when he first came across this website. I imagine he Googled philosophy podcast, and there was an introduction to philosophy by this man, who is very charismatic and says unusual things in quite a gripping way. And he can tell you how to be free. He can really help you achieve personal freedom. All you have to do is listen to some of his podcasts, starting at the beginning of 2,500, read his books as well. Voluntary donations, please, because we can't run this without you. Just had a bill for the server. When you listen to the podcasts, it's not so much about philosophy. It's about how evil your parents were, how you were abused as a child because you didn't ask to be born. That was an unequal relationship. Therefore, it's an abusive relationship. It's nothing to do with sexual abuse, physical abuse, beating, whatever, even emotional abuse of raising a voice or shouting at a child or shouting that they're stupid. It can be just asking them to clean their room, asking them to tidy up, lay the table. Very simple things. Do your homework. Things that parents say routinely to their children as they're growing up. That's abusive, apparently. So you should get abusive people out of your life. You should only have voluntary relationships. And that means you should cut yourself off from your parents.
How long since you've seen Tom?
4 years. 4 years this month, in fact. He's alive and well. I'm not sure what part of the country he's in anymore. He's very much involved with this organisation still. He's close friends with some of the inner circle, and I can't see him coming out of it as long as this charismatic leader is still alive. The advert for the show, it's growing very popular in across the world, not just in America and Canada, where it's largely based, but also in the UK, Australia, Europe. It's like an internet radio show. So there's a weekly show which is live on Sunday evening. There's podcasts
I bet
as well.
Rod can enlighten us further here, Barbara. It's an incredibly powerful story. We were saying earlier on, the brain can be very malleable and very vulnerable, and Tom, paradoxically, was studying critical thinking. But all the critical faculties seem to just disintegrate in some... Are we all vulnerable?
I think all people are vulnerable to being manipulated and to also having their psychology taken over by any group or organisation, and it can be a religious group or it can be a political group.
Why might this particularly hit home with Tom?
Because it offers ultimate truths, and on their own there's nothing wrong with that, but if that means cutting yourself off from your family, cutting yourself off from your career, giving your possessions away, if it takes over your life. The evidence is now becoming very clear in the literature that when groups take over in that way, when they become totalistic, that has a serious psychological effect on individuals, as well as destroying their life chances over the period during which they're involved. And the question to that group, the same to any other organisation in my view, is what are you doing to look after your members? Now, the fact is that the law doesn't apply equally at the moment to voluntary organisations or to religions. The Health and Safety at Work Act, for example, that has the duty of care.
Multinational organisations
also
as well.
Multinational. And the fact is that I welcome any organisation that says that it's prepared to open itself up to that scrutiny, that says that it'll allow...
Which Simon has to you this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. I welcome that.
And the Radiants have as well.
But I would say that those groups that don't, those groups that try and allow the argument to go forward, that somehow their beliefs allow them to do anything to anybody, those are the groups that I would describe as destructive cults, because they elevate belief beyond anything, and it actually doesn't matter anymore the effect that has on people.
I agree with him. I think that there's no system of checks and balances within these groups, and I think that people are afraid to step on their toes, but step on people's religious right to religious freedom, and yet forget about the effect that if you have the right to believe whatever you want, but the moment that your belief infringes on another's rights.
Word, Cole, on this. Your thoughts.
Well,
40 seconds.
My thoughts are there will be people sitting at home thinking, well, I sort of believe in God, and I'm looking for truth in my life. But what I've heard today is a great number of people are all saying, I've got the truth because Jesus told me individually. And actually, what I look for in a belief system is a belief system that's about personal freedom, but also about community and belonging, and allows me to express that and to also have an appreciation for the people around me who might have different belief systems. I've heard that this morning from some of the people who are around this room, and I've not heard it from others, and those are the ones that concern me.
Thank you all very much indeed. Thank you. As ever, the debate continues on Twitter, online. We're not on next week because it's Whitsun. We'll be in Glasgow June the 3rd. From now, goodbye from everyone here in London, and thank you very much for watching.